First, Benjamin Netanyahu has submitted a plan outlining what role the state of Israel will play in the Gaza Strip once the war ends. The blueprint is the first formal post-war vision presented to Parliament. The plan, that's scant on details, calls for Israel to control security in a demilitarized Gaza Strip. We can now go across to ABC correspondent Jordana Miller standing by in Jerusalem. Jordana, good afternoon. Will there be any Palestinian role at all in this post-war scenario?
Well, according to Israel's Prime Minister, the Palestinian Authority appears not to have any role in his vision of post war Gaza. He did not mention the Palestinian Authority by name, and everyone really already knew that the Prime Minister was going to insist that Israel would have a security role for an undetermined amount of time in the Gaza Strip. But everyone was looking closely to see how he would lay out the parties that would take responsibility for civil governance in the Gaza Strip. Who would provide,
Israelis
and be in
admitted.
charge of medicine or education, etc. And that role has been given to what Netanyahu calls local parties, local governance, and not the Palestinian Authority. Does he leave elbow room for them to come in since he doesn't outright reject the Palestinian Authority in this plan? Maybe, but for Ramallah, that's not good enough. They've already rejected this, saying, the only future for Gaza is one in which the Palestinians have a role.
Jordana, the head of Israeli intelligence is due in Paris for further talks on a ceasefire deal. Initial talks were reportedly positive, those talks in Egypt. Now, there is pressure mounting on the Israeli side to clinch an agreement before the start of Ramadan.
That's right. It's clear here that President Biden has, really put a lot of pressure on Hamas and on Israel to try to come to a deal. He sent his special envoy to the region this week, and there seems to have been some movement. Netanyahu, was against any kind of participation by the Israelis in talks unless Hamas softened their position on some of what he called delusional demands, but what the United States called non-starters. So it appears that somewhere, and it's likely on the issue of the identity and number of Palestinian prisoners to be released, the ratio between those and each hostage to be released, instead of hundreds, it appears that Hamas may have softened their position on that, as well as declarations that the war would end, which obviously Israel's against, and maybe some of the positions of where the Israeli troops would be. It's clear that the United States wants to clinch a deal before Ramadan, which starts on March 10th. And that is really also one of Israel's interests, even though it keeps threatening an operation in Rafah. Ramadan is always a time of increased tension and violence, and Israel certainly wants to avoid that, as does the United States, and in particular, given how high the tensions are on the northern border and the volley between Israel and Hezbollah, which, with both sides deepening their attacks on each side of the border, it is really, a dangerous time to go into Ramadan still fighting. And so we're going to have to wait and see what happens in Paris this weekend. But there's certainly cautious optimism that Israel has agreed to this round.